Hi, just covering Adam Green's show here, which was on live. It's quite a long show. Prohibition of Anti-Semitism, and he's discussing how it's now coming into American state legislation law that basically if you criticise Israel, if you criticise Zionism, which really, let's face it, let's understand what criticism actually is, okay? There's a difference between criticising and acknowledging criminal activity. You know, you couldn't call acknowledging criminal activity as a criticism of somebody, could you? It's identifying a crime and a lawful suspect. Okay, you've witnessed a crime, you've witnessed the criminal, who will then be arrested, prosecuted as a lawful suspect, and probably convicted in a court, according to the evidence to be presented, you see. But at no point can the witness to that be considered a critique. You know, oh yeah, well, he criticised this criminal activity. No, you report it to the police, and if there are no police, you just report it to people, hoping that people, somebody somewhere is going to do something about it. So, acknowledging the crimes and atrocities that Israel, led by Zionists, alleged Zionists, as I call them, supreme supremacists, the SS, is what they truly are, okay? Operating under the guise of Judaism. Basically, that's not a criticism to acknowledge the crimes that they're committing against the Palestinian people. That isn't a criticism. That's a fact of reality, of acknowledging the crime and the criminals committing the crimes. The unlawful seizure of people's territory through means of terrorism. Okay? That isn't a criticism. That's an acknowledgement of crime. And it's a very serious thing if in this world today it's going to be passed in the most powerful nation, one of the most powerful nations on this planet, America, is actually bringing into law the idea that it will become illegal to acknowledge crime and to report it. You know, they're asking, they are commandeering the media not to report on the criminal activities that Israel is committing against the people of Palestine. This is a very, very serious issue. It's a very, very, very serious issue. This is outrageous. Because if our newspapers are going to be banned from reporting on crime on the grounds that it is criticising Israel and therefore is anti-Semitic, so therefore that means that Israel can act as a criminal in this world and nobody is going to be able to legally challenge them, because to do so is to be anti-Semitic, and that's against the law. So then, what? Every criminal can become a Zionist. And as long as they're a Zionist, they're above reproach. Because the most powerful criminals on earth will be there to protect them and make sure they occupy positions of power. Like attracts like. Well, we're already there in a criminal world, being governed by criminals who are now taking control of the law to such a degree. Well, here they go again, you see, because they've taken enough rope to hang themselves. Because I've explained in my previous video, and yes, it's a long video, take some time, have a listen. You know, you probably learn a lot more than you would from listening to an hour of BBC News 24. So, first of all, so let's break it down. And I hope Adam Green picks up on on these points that I'm making as well, because I feel we all need to start standing together now, the people of the global internet community, because I must say there's more of a community online than I'm experiencing in the external world directly around me, where actually there isn't a lot of interest. People seem to be running away from what's happening in the world more than confronting it, or if they are thinking about it, they're not actually doing very much about it. But I think also the online platforms are actually launching actions within our external community. So, you know, it's important that we present, I believe, a united front, and that's why often when I make my videos I do focus on other YouTubers and what they're presenting as well, to show, like, look, there's something happening here, there's an awareness, there's an awakening. These people, as far as I'm aware, having looked through what's out there on YouTube, these people are presenting the most, well, the fairest, most balanced understanding of the situations. And yet they seem extreme. But it isn't that Adam Green is extreme. It isn't that Ryan, the last American vagabond, is extreme. It's that the information that they're sharing is extreme. What's happening in our world today is extreme, and in no way can we be considered extremists for discussing that and confronting it and trying to find ways of addressing it without, falling victim to civil war and mass insurrection, as it were. Basically playing right into the corporate hands of their plans for a police state. You know, that's what they'd love. So how do we address this thing now? Because you're talking about a psychological chess game going on here. How can they deliver the point and force us to swallow that point? Well, now I'm going to deliver a few points, okay? So in that sense, my tongue is like a spear, isn't it? Delivering these points that are going to drive home the points and force your points back, alleged Zionists, okay? And see if you can swallow these points. So, as I mentioned in my previous video, over 50 minutes long, I explain exactly why these people calling themselves Zionists are not Zionists. Okay, they are actually anti-Zionists, because true Zionists are Rastafarian, and these people calling themselves Zionists are supreme supremacists. And one thing that Rastafarians are not are supremacists. They believe in equality. They believe in respect. They operate on a way of peace. They are of the same people, of the same mentality, the same psychology that Yahweh deemed fit, as was present in Solomon, King Solomon, who was deemed fit, the only person deemed fit to build the temple of Israel. And only his psychology, his consciousness was deemed fit to rule Israel forever. Right? Not these warmongers. He's warmongering Dad. No, sorry. Sorry, Dad. You aren't fit to rule Israel, to build a temple to God. That is for the child who has grown up and learned from the errors of his father's ways, who does better than his father. Because his father is the law, the God that provided us the law. You see, that's Rastafarian. Rastafarians, the way of peace. Zionists, they follow Zion, okay? They're Zionists. They're the true Zionists. Iron Lion Zion. They're the Iron Lion Zion, okay? These people calling themselves Zionists, they're not Zionists because they're supremacists. They are the supreme supremacists. They hold themselves above every single supremacist group on earth. Because they believe that they have a right. Apparently, they're God's chosen people. So, apparently, God chose people in order, apparently God had rescued these people from slavery in order to set them above the whole of humanity on earth, to enslave us all to their will, so that they can commit crimes with impunity, and anybody who acknowledges those crimes is guilty of criticism and has themselves committed a crime of anti-Semitism by mentioning the crimes that they've witnessed as coming from God's chosen people. Because, you know, that is why God would choose a people, isn't it? To rule over humanity in order that they could set themselves supreme supremacists, judge humanity as cattle, and thereafter treat humanity like cattle, in order for them to live in the lap of luxury while everybody suffers in abject misery and poverty. And our planet slowly gets destroyed by their disgusting, despicable, polluting corporations, all operating on their disgusting, usury banking system. That, again, is totally outside of Yahweh's law. You know, Yahweh explains very clearly that usury is a crime. So what we're dealing with are a pack of liars and thieves, criminals, hiding behind a veneer of Jewishness. Okay, because that's the only thing that's Jew about them. The Jewish. There's something Jewish about them, but they're not Jews. Rastafarians are more Jews than they are, these alleged Zionists. So for any of these Zionists to be able to accuse, you know, if it got to a court case, then basically, you know, if I was being accused of being anti-Semitic because of what I've said, what I'm saying about these alleged Zionists, then I would be issuing counter-charges against them. I would be challenging, first, the fact that they have a right to call themselves Zionists, because Rastafarians are Zionists, and that actually it's them who are anti-Zionist, because they operate on totally opposite to Rastafarians, true Zionists. So, you know, it's them that are anti-Zionist. It's them who are anti-Semitic because they're committing crimes in the name of Yahweh as alleged Jews, and then simultaneously claiming that Yahweh condones their crimes and giving themselves the right to build a temple when Yahweh has explained very clearly that the only kind of ruling consciousness of Israel that has a right to build a temple for Yahweh is a consciousness like Solomon. So they're not even operating according to Yahweh's consciousness, Yahweh's intelligence, Yahweh's wisdom. They're committing crimes in the name of the Judaic faith and holding themselves above everybody, claiming that they're God's chosen people, operating as the SS, supreme supremacists, and judging everybody else as cattle. So they're actually feeding hatred then against Jewish people generally because of their criminal actions and judgments against humanity and their illegal banking system and the crimes that they're supporting and committing throughout the world and the corruption that they're feeding on within every government on earth virtually, and the criminal activities that they're encouraging from that kind of power and influence. You know, these people calling themselves Zionists, they're not just anti-Semitic themselves, they're actually anti-human. They're anti-Christian. They're anti-Islamic. They're anti-love. So they have no right. They have no right. You know, anybody tries to come after you because, oh, you've said something against Zionism. No, sorry. These people, stop calling them Zionists. Call them for what they are, the SS. The supreme supremacists. That's what they are. Do not tell me that it is anti-Semitic to call these alleged Zionist Jewish global rulers, okay? Do not tell me that it is anti-Semitic to describe them as the SS when that is what their whole philosophy is founded on. That's the cornerstone of their whole philosophy, is that they are the supreme supremacists. They are the SS. They're not Zionists. So they have no right. You see, Zion is Judaic. It's a Judaic concept of actually the female intelligence, the mistress mounting, that has been, you know, judged a molehill by the criminal, mostly male powers that have been controlling us for how long. But they understand that, you know, they understand what Zion actually refers to in its higher sense, in the spiritual sense of Zion. A place of balance, reason, care, compassion. All of the things that these people calling themselves Zionists are not. And that's why they're not Zionists. That's why they're liars. They are supreme supremacists who've latched onto the Judaic faith because there is something in there that allows them to call themselves the supreme supremacists as long as they're Jewish. But Jewish isn't being a Jew. The people who are with God's chosen people understand, they seek to understand Yahweh. They seek to express the highest understanding and expression of Yahweh's wisdom and guidance. They do not seek to profit from misinterpretations and outright lies in order to set themselves up as little demigods over our planet that they're already destroying with their evil money supply, and actually evil criminal corporations churning out pollution mostly. So, you know, it isn't going to wash alleged Zionists. That's what I'm explaining to you. There's my point. My point. Pointy. That's my point. You are not Zionists. You will, if you want to bring this to law, then you are going to have to prove in court exactly why you're a Zionist. Exactly what it is about you that gives you the right to call yourself a Zionist, when we've got the Rastafarians there who are the true Zionists. Who most has a right to call themselves a Zionist then? You people who break the law and ignore Jah wisdom and Jah light? Or these people who stand with Jah and uphold the law? Yes, you people have no right to call yourself a Zionist. We have a right to call you for what you are, supreme supremacists, who cannot even show an actual allegiance to anything from Yahweh, just from the very fact that you've all decided you're going to rebuild Solomon's temple, when Solomon himself, to build it, okay, had to, you know, in order for that temple to be built and accepted as by God, as a temple worthy of God, then Israel at that time needed to be governed by a man of peace, a Rastafarian, basically. And Israel is not governed by a Rastafarian. It's governed by liars, people calling themselves Jewish. Jewish is what they are. Calling themselves Zionists, when actually they are nothing more nor less than supreme supremacists hoping to latch on to a seat of power in order to give themselves the rights to do as thy will on earth, because they've been chosen by God. Well, any God that would set such a psychology to rule over our planet is not a God, it's a devil. And it's as simple as that. So there you go. You know, I hope that this helps you along in your efforts, Adam Green. I hope it helps humanity along in our efforts. I hope it helps true Jews along in their efforts. And I hope that it helps the people calling themselves Zionists, affiliated with this criminal SS, understand exactly what you are aligned with and get yourself out of it. Forgiveness, that's what Jesus taught. It's there for everybody who has the courage to step out from these madnesses now and just recognise crime, because I'm sorry, alleged Zionists, SS, it's not a criticism to expose crime and criminals and to seek help for the victims.